Hi and hello everybody, it's Fern. Welcome back to another Planty video. Thank you so much for joining me for this alocasia feature. We are going to be talking about a plant that has become a bit of an icon in my collection, I would say. I feel like I have a handful of plants that have been with me for several years and they are just staples in my collection. We've come to know them very well, and I think that my variegated alocasia dragon scale is also joining the ranks because I've had this plant for over 3 years now and it's grown out beautifully for me, and it's just become one that I think is going to stay in my collection for good. It's nice to be in my little filming spot in front of the calyx shelf again. I wasn't sitting here for a while because this shelf was just a hot mess, but I actually rearranged it and I'm so happy with how the plants look on here now. You'll see that in a video coming next week, but yeah, I'm feeling it. So today we're going to be talking all about this gal here. We're going to be going back to the beginning when I first got this plant. I'm going to be talking about my experience with it over the last few years and giving you the conditions that I am growing it in. Just a reminder, this is not a how to do video. This is a how I do video. So without further ado, let's just hop into when I first got this plant, which was in June 2023. It was actually just a couple of weeks after I moved into this place, so it's crazy. She's pretty much been with me the whole time that I've lived in this house, which is really cool. Maybe I will give you a look at her first before we go any further. She's absolutely stunning. Perfect variegation in my opinion. Each leaf is a little bit different, but very like marbly, but also with some sectoral variegation. Oh my gosh, she's just so breathtaking. So I got this plant June 2023. It actually came to me from Repotting. I have an unboxing, so I'll link the video of when I was opening this plant up for the first time. Now this plant was actually gifted to me by Repotting, which I so appreciate. She let me pick out what plant I wanted, and I had to choose this one. I picked the exact one that I wanted as well, and I remember just going back and forth so much between, because there's a few different variegated dragon scale options, and I was just really overthinking the different variegation on each of them. I settled on this one and it showed up. It looked absolutely gorgeous. I was so happy with it, like right from the get-go. It was just small. It's actually not like a tiny size, but it was pretty small. Now I did have a lot of experience growing, well, a lot. I mean, I had a few years of experience growing the regular green alocasia dragon scale out. That was actually one of my first alocasias that I purchased in like 2020. And I loved that plant so much. It grew out so well for me. It was so easy and so rewarding, which was why when the variegated ones started popping up, I was so interested in grabbing one because I already had such a great experience with the green one. And I do feel like the care and the experience of growing this plant is very similar to just the green one. Like there really is not any difference that I've noticed. Like they both are happy in the same conditions. I find them to both be the same level of ease to care for. So I was feeling fairly confident about getting the variegated one, but when it arrived, since it was a pretty small plant and since it had just been shipped to me, I decided to pop it in my IKEA greenhouse cabinet just to kind of get it established, let it pop out a couple of leaves for me. So that's what I did. It lived in the IKEA greenhouse cabinet for a while, and then eventually it outgrew the cabinet, and I don't know if it lived somewhere else or if I immediately put it on my Vistjo plant shelf, but it's been living on my Vistjo plant shelf, which is just out in ambient conditions. It's been in its spot for at least a year, I feel, and it might have been somewhere else in ambient before that. I can't remember exactly. I just know that I had it in the cabinet for a while and then I took it out of the cabinet, and it was completely fine with that transition. It does great just in ambient. I don't think that this is an alocasia that you need to give super high humidity or anything like that. Okay, she is in this cute pink pot, but it's very heavy, so I'm just gonna take the nursery pot out for me to hold her. Oh my gosh, that's such a nice ceramic pot, but it's very heavy. I've really had no big problems with this plant. It's never caused me much trouble at all. So in its current spot on that shelf, and I'll insert footage of what it looks like in its little setup. I actually think it's so cute. It's on a little plant stand so that I could boost it a little bit closer to the grow light. But it has two Brina T5s above it. I believe they're the 1 foot ones, so I believe that they're 5 watts each. So it has 10 watts of light coming from above it. And I do have it boosted up because I felt like it was just a little bit too far. That is the one thing that I will emphasize. This plant loves light. I also found that with my green dragon scale. I find that with most alocasia, they really love light. And when they're not getting enough light, then you might see like long petioles. Mine isn't too bad because I do run that light for like 14 hours a day, so it does get a decent amount of light. But when they aren't getting enough light, they will be very slow to grow. You won't get new leaves very often, and yeah, the plant will just look a little bit more leggy rather than like bushy and more compact like this. So that's really the number one thing that I would prioritize. I think people really fret about humidity and even watering. Like, this thing can really tolerate a lot when it comes to your watering schedule. It is a rigid, like, if you haven't felt these before, it's a very like, you know, this feels like thick paper or cardboard or something. Like, it's a very rigid leaf. So it can tolerate quite a bit. Like, it's not a fragile plant at all. But the one thing that I do make sure that it has is good lighting. So that is really one of the main points that I want to emphasize in this video when it comes to caring for this plant. Look at the new leaf that she's putting out. I can't wait to see it. It's so exciting to watch the new leaves come out on the variegated version so that you can see what variegation pattern you are going to get. So I can't wait to see that one come out. I do have two. I've never, well, actually that's not true. I have propagated this plant in the sense that I've harvested corms when I did a repot. But I have never intentionally like tried to fill out this pot. I think this was just a pup that it put out, and I just left it alone, let it do its thing. Like, you can see she has corms up right here as well. Like, there's tons. This looks like a new offshoot that's coming out there. So it will fill out and like push out new little plants if you don't remove the corms. And I usually don't bother. Like, I mean, if I see one that looks really enticing near the top of the soil, then I might pluck it off. Or when I do a repot, I might pluck it, but I'm not huge on deliberately harvesting the corms out because I'm just not much of a propagator these days. Speaking of repotting, I have had her in this pot for, I want to say, close to a couple of years. Like, I don't even remember the last time I repotted her. And that is intentional. I have no reason, first of all, to repot her. She's growing steadily. She does not seem unhappy. She does dry out pretty quickly, but that's not really a big deal for me. I just try to, you know, give her some water whenever I can. But the reason I'm not in a hurry to repot her is I find alocasia can get a little bit weird after repotting. It can really stall them out on their growth. They can get a little bit stressed. So I don't really repot my alocasia a lot because I just find that they don't really need it, and often it's not worth the kind of stress that it causes them. So I try to do minimal repotting. Probably only once every 2 or 3 years is what I'm going to be doing going forward. Repotting will be a little bit more frequent when you are growing from a small plant and, you know, you're just going through that kind of growth phase where it's constantly putting out bigger leaves and it's just getting bigger in general. Then you're going to be repotting more to keep up with that. But once it's kind of an established plant like this, I just don't really feel the need to be repotting very often. She's just happy. So yeah, I just let her hang out. I have this one just in my DIY potting mix, which is Pro Mix HP, a little bit of extra perlite, and some orchid bark. It's just a very simple mix, but honestly my alocasia do pretty well on it, and I will link my substrate video down below if you want to learn more about that. In terms of growth speed, I feel like she grows at a steady pace, like not super fast. Like I know some plants, as soon as a new leaf hardens off, they're already putting out another one. She's not really like that. Like there will be a few weeks before she starts working, or maybe even like a month or so before she starts working on the next leaf, but I'm perfectly happy with that. Like I love the pace that she grows at. It's not too slow, it's not too fast. It's, you know, when something grows so fast, it's almost more difficult to keep up with. But no, I feel like she's at a perfect pace, and she doesn't lose leaves that often either. I actually just removed one the other day because it had part of it that was looking like really crispy and kind of browning. So I just clipped that one off, but now I'm getting another one. So no worries there. I think if your plant is happy with its conditions and its care, you won't be waiting too long for leaves. But sometimes alocasia just like to be pouty for seemingly no reason, and you might not get a leaf for like a couple of months. I've definitely had that happen. They do have their moments, but eventually she just goes back into rhythm for me. I'm not going to be talking a lot about corms in this video. Maybe I'll do a dedicated video, because I think I'm going to do a big corm harvest from some of my alocasia soon, because my pink dragon has so many that are like above the soil. So I might do that. But I have been loving this like lazy method. I think this is called the puddle method, where you just put a little bit of water and you stick your corms in there, and they just like sit in this puddle, and then they root out eventually. That's how I rooted up my alocasia. This is Watsoniana. That's how I grew this corm out, and it worked really well. So that's just, I love it because it requires very little of you. You don't have to keep moss moist or anything like that. So I think it's called the puddle method if you want to look it up further. Okay, I want to make sure we cover the rest of growing conditions. So since she is just out in ambient, it's just like room temperature in here. You know, it fluctuates a little bit, but it's usually not too crazy on either end of the spectrum. My humidity, I do have pretty decent humidity. It's usually between 50 to 60%, but it's still just ambient. I don't supplement with a humidifier or anything like that. And yeah, she does not mind. Now, when it comes to watering, I just kind of, I mean, A, I know my plants, I'm just used to watering them, and B, this is usually completely dried out by the time I get to watering her, so I don't have to worry about over watering so much. But one thing that could be tricky for a beginner is that she doesn't really show signs of thirst. Like I said, the leaves are really thick and rigid. She doesn't really droop or get soft or anything like that. Like she just kind of stays looking the same. Unless she was really in a bad spot, then obviously she would start to look unwell. But I've never really seen this plant show any signs of thirst that are visible. Good ways to tell are the weight of the pot. If you get used to feeling what it feels like when it's wet after you water, and then feeling it once it starts getting dry. That's probably one of my most used ways of trying to gauge how dry my plants are, is just picking up the pot. But she's just never been fussed. I'm sure that I have overwatered her before, and I know I've definitely underwatered her before, and I've never really seen any crazy effects from that. So I would say once it's mostly dry, give her some more water. Mostly to completely dry even, I would say. I've also used so many different types of fertilizer on this plant. I for a while was really into using General Hydroponics, the 3-part Flora series. I've used just Miracle Grow on this plant before. I've supplemented with Kelpie, which all of my plants really love Kelpie. Nurture System is what I've been using most recently. So I really don't think it, okay, my battery died, sorry about that. But I would just say don't get too hung up on fertilizer, like what kind or what brand of fertilizer you're using, but do make sure that you are fertilizing, because alocasia can be very they can be very hungry plants. So I never skimp on feeding my alocasia or my begonia. I do fertilize all my plants, but those are the ones that I really try to make sure that they're definitely getting fed. Alocasia do bloom, so this one does occasionally put out a flower for me. Honestly, not super often, which is great because I kind of hate when I'm seeing growth happening and I think it's gonna be a new leaf and then it's just an ugly flower. I'm like, thanks. I know some people cut them off. Sometimes I do cut mine off. Sometimes I leave them on. It kind of just depends. Probably more often I will cut it off just because I don't like the look of it. I don't notice her being bothered by that. So I don't know. The attitude I've kind of been embracing this year is to just cut things off if I don't like them. Cut leaves off, cut whatever, because before I used to be really kind of rigid in thinking like, oh, I don't want to cut anything off unless it like really needs to go, like it's starting to dry up and you know, it's just done. But now I'm just like, you know what, if I don't like the look of it, like it's going. So that's kind of up to your discretion. Some people think that you should leave them on. I don't know. I mean, mine is doing great and I usually cut them off, so do with that what you will. In terms of pests, really the only issue that I've had is mealybugs. I have had a lot of mealybugs. In fact, there could even be mealybugs on her right now because I do notice just every once in a while I'll find a mealy or two on her still. But yeah, I don't know, they just love this plant. I actually find that mealies love alocasia for some annoying reason. They love my Hoya and they love my alocasia, and they will especially hide in all of this like paper sheathing on the stem. So you can just tear that off to limit the hiding spaces available for them. Just wait until it's dry, because if you try to tear when it's still like fleshy, it's just like mushy and gross. So once they are like brown and papery is when you can tear them off. But yeah, I just try to do that so that the mealies can't be lurking and laying their eggs in there and everything. But yeah, for some reason they do love, at least in my household. I'm on the tail end of a horrible, like years-long mealybug problem, so maybe not everybody has mealies on their alocasia, but for me, the mealies were kind of everywhere, unfortunately. Other than that, I haven't really had problems with pests with this plant. And the way that I treat mealies right now is I put out beneficial lacewing larvae every 2 weeks, and I also just spot treat with isopropyl alcohol when I do see mealies out. I used to spray my plants down with, I had a DIY mix. I can link a video that I followed to make that if you're interested, or I would purchase Safer's End All, which worked really well, and that works for mites as well, like flat mites and spider mites. So I'll try to link both of those resource or options in the description box, because I know not everybody can do or wants to do the beneficials thing, which I totally understand. Trying to see if that, I think that's pretty much everything. I think this plant would also do great in semi-hydro if you're a semi-hydro grower. If I end up propagating some corms from this one, I will probably go the leca route, just because I find it easier to maintain, and I'd just be curious to kind of see what the difference is between growing in leca and growing in soil. But for now, I'm just gonna leave this mama in soil because she seems to be really happy with it. I think that's pretty much all I have to share about this one. I just love her so much. Like, she's really become one of my top favorite houseplants, and I think that y'all are getting to know her pretty well too. So I thought it was time for her own video. And actually, this was voted on by my patrons, so thank you so much to them, because I was debating between a few different plants to do for my feature, because I'm trying to do a feature video every month. So if there's a plant in my collection that you really want a dedicated video on, leave a comment down below and let me know, and I will consider it for the next feature video. But thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I hope that this was helpful. If you have any more questions about this plant or her care, leave me a comment. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.